when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning, good morning, morning.
Welcome back to the Morning Show on Tobago Updates Television, and thank you so much for staying with us. All right, we continue conversations this morning, and we speak this morning with Mr. Wendell Eversley. He is the Vice President of the Tassa Association of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, the conversation that has been in the public space about the inclusion of the steel pan on the coat of arms and also the Tassa drums. Good morning and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Trinidad Tobago, and good morning to all your listeners in Tobago. You know, Tobago is my second home.
That's
And
right.
I must say, good morning again. A special good morning is that I keep praying and asking God to move out the evil energy that they're trying to paint Tobago in presently with the crime situation. And I know that Tobagonians are praying people, and one day it will come to an end.
That is the prayer of all of us here on the island of Tobago, and of course, it takes a measure of action as well. So we're hoping that can be done. This morning we're talking about the conversation that has been happening in the public space where some persons are saying that the Tassa drum should also be included on the coat of arms. And you know there's that conversation that is happening there, and it seems as if it's a conversation about one as opposed to the other. And I know, of course, that you have an opinion on this. So I want to get into where you stand, where the conversation is. I've been hearing a lot of comments. I've been seeing a lot of posts on social media pages. And of course, and you know, there's some sort of friction that is being created as a result of the type of conversations or how the conversations are narrated. So I'd like to know where you stand, where this is concerned, so that we can have the conversation here to bring out some of the strong points.
Um, as I was saying, right, you must listen to the messenger and don't kill the messenger. And they say a prophet have no honor in his own land. Dr. Morgan Job, who is a Tobagonian, a well-educated person, he had a program on Power 102. And Morgan Job keep telling Trinidad and Tobago, one of the greatest mistakes we make is having Emancipation Day. Well, now we know it now is African Emancipation Day and Indian Arrival Day. Morgan Job said we should have Arrival Day, one holiday. No matter who come first, who come last. It was everybody came into Trinidad and Tobago and everybody bring their culture. But when it comes to the steel pan, we must look at the facts where the steel pan is concerned. Some people say the steel drum did not manufacture here. Yes, we know that. But out of the oil or the gas or whatever come with the steel drum, they take the empty steel drum and invented an instrument which is called the steel pan. And if you all ever visit some of those Spaniards, even in Tobago, and you watch how them tuners operate and how they craft the steel pan, and to get this song, right, you get A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, E minor, you get Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do. And to know that we take an empty tin and create an instrument. Remember, the steel pan is an instrument, a musical instrument. What play music, any type of music. You think about it, you get all type of music from the steel pan. And I see no beef in making the steel pan our national instrument. And if you could recall, I think it was our 30th anniversary of independence. Today, 32 years later, we hear the steel pan is now the national instrument. I welcome it. I'm glad for it. And I am happy because we have to also give credit to the Steel Pan Trust, because the Steel Pan Trust of Trinidad and Tobago is the one who started the dialogue with the Minister of Foreign Affairs to make steel pan recognized throughout the world. And today we have the World Steel Pan Day, which is celebrated by the United Nations on the 11th of August every year. And that's a great plus, not only for Trinidad and Tobago, but also for the instrument itself, to know that this is the only instrument that created in this century. And I must say how glad I am for that. We know that Pan Trinbago now take the lead, and we see that the steel pan now is celebrated throughout the world. I remember when I was in South Africa, I was happy to hear in Nelson Mandela Square, they're playing the steel pan music in Germany. When I was there also too, in Switzerland, in Sweden, and who playing the steel pan music? Not Africans, is white people and citizens of those countries. And it's so glad, and I feel so happy to know that this come from our country, and now the world is recognizing the World Steel Pan Day. So I have no beef in recognizing the steel pan as our national instrument. And if they want to put the steel pan on the motto, I in favor of it. I in favor of it. I know a lot of people ask me, as vice president of the Tassa Association, we see comments. The Tassa Association put out something that the steel pan, the Tassa should be on the motto also. I would not support it, because that statement didn't come from me. So I said I keep telling them, the person who put out the statement, the president, talk to the president about it. Because one thing I keep doing is fighting for the Tassa to be recognized, fighting for the Tassa to get a subvention, a yearly subvention, just as how the other cultural organization like Pan Trinbago, the Mass, the Mass, also the Calypso. I want us to get a subvention. So the talk that we see in Bannon about now, that the Tassa should be on the coat of arm, I am not in support of it. We have one national instrument which was created here, so I don't care who say the steel drum didn't manufacture here. It come like Levi. Levi is a brand, but where Levi came from, United States of America, but where Levi belts, Levi jeans, Levi sneakers, all them things manufactured in China, where Apple is invented. Apple is invented in United States of America, but where Apple is manufactured in China, right? So if we have something that is invented here and is manufactured is somewhere else, the main important thing is the original invention of that something is coming from the country of origin. And the steel pan is instrument, is a musical instrument that invented in Trinidad and Tobago. So I am happy to know that the steel pan is getting the recognition where it is with by now being the national instrument. But I still think that more should be done to the steel pan. And one of the things I was against is when the land at Orange Grove it, move away from the Pan Trinbago organization and given to a businessman out in India who will come and build a cricket academy. I think even though they said the Pan Trinbago did not have the land and they did not know lease, I think this present government should have put in place to make sure that I have the lease and make sure that Pan Trinbago get that. I think it's about 30 acres of land out in Orange Grove because it is prime land, prime location, and the amount of things that could take place there at Orange Grove is left for the pan movement to ask the government to rethink their position and moving away the land which was given to them. Although they say it had no deed. If it have no deed and it's state land, the government who is in charge of the whole entire country could make it available for Pan Trinbago. So making the steel pan the national instrument, putting the steel pan also on the coat of arms. But what next for the steel pan, and what next for the um, steel pan men and women throughout Trinidad and Tobago? Are we going to see now Pan Trinbago take the front in having a steel pan manufacturing company right on that stated land? Are we going to see Pan Trinbago now going to have a quick shop with gas station and all these things right up there? Are we going to see now Pan Trinbago provide a massive stores chain, a massive big supermarket where pan men and pan women and them could go and get employment and create? Are we going to see now pan music teach in schools throughout Trinidad and Tobago where it will be part of our curriculum and hire teachers to teach not only at secondary school level but primary school level? So I am not going to go into the back and forth concerning the Tassa and the steel pan. My focus right now is for Tassa to get a subvention, a yearly subvention. I wrote the Prime Minister about it. They replied to me and they said they're looking at it. So that is my concentration right now as Vice President of the Tassa Association.
All right, Mr. Eversley, we also look forward to see where the steel pan will progress from here. I know I spoke with the president of Pan Trinbago, and she, of course, is very excited, very elated, and, of course, has a lot of ideas. And if you know anything about her, she's a very progressive thinking person. So we're looking to see the movement of the steel pan as it represents Trinidad and Tobago on international platforms, not just the fact that it is now the national instrument, which is something to be proud of, and will also be placed on our national emblem, but of course to see the progression and the advancement of the steel pan here in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world at large. So we look forward to those things as well, and we thank you so much for your contribution to this conversation this morning, bringing a little history there about the steel pan, the creation, the invention of the steel pan, and you know the journey that the steel pan took to where it is for today. So we really truly appreciate that. We have to go for a short break before we come back with conversations this morning. And as we go for a break, viewers, we invite you to stay with us. And as you stay with us, we invite you to help us share the live, share the live, share the live. We'll be right back.
Good morning.
Welcome back to the Morning Show on Tobago Updates Television. I am Adanna Combie. It's now about 7:47 a.m. So if you're getting to work for 8 a.m., you have just about 13 minutes to get there. Remember to drive safely on our nation's roads, as we want you to get to work safe, and we want the pedestrians and other road users to be safe as well. We continue conversations this morning, and we continue speaking with Mr. Wendell Eversley. He's the Vice President of the Tassa Association of Trinidad and Tobago. And right now we're going to shift the conversation a little bit to the governance of Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome back, Mr. Eversley.
Yes. If we talk about the governance of Trinidad and Tobago, in terms of the constitutional reform that was presented to the Prime Minister?
All right. I know there are so many things that we can talk about in terms of governance, because governance is such a wide topic, you know. And if we're speaking about constitutional reform, then let's go ahead speaking about that. Let's hear your position on what was presented.
Because if we have to go back to the Hugh Wooden constitution reform, which was started by the then late Eric Williams, who put Hugh Wooden as the chairman to go length and breadth throughout the country where constitutional reform is concerned. And if you compare the constitutional reform that we see presently today, every time we have constitutional reform in this country and it presented the report, we notice that the government of the day, I will say, throw it in the dustbin. Same thing with the Hugh Wooden constitutional reform. If you all remember, when that report was presented, the late Eric Williams, may his soul rest in peace, said that it would have been a dagger in the heart of the PNM. And Eric Williams did use a statement, and he said that the only way it could be the PNM is everybody have to join together. And we all know that the PNM is an institution. When you look at the constitutional reform as presented by Patrick Manning, where he wanted an executive president, we know what become of that. When you look at parties that had the majority to have constitutional reform, they did not take it up and give us the constitutional reform changes that we need. Because PNM had it in 71 with the No Vote campaign, they had the whole 36 seats. The NAR had it in 1986, 33-3. Kamla Pusa had it in 2010 with 29 seats. And none of them never really take constitutional reform seriously. We see
And
today.
this now is my question. Sorry to cut you across. This is my question now because we've been having conversations of constitutional reform for many years. It's nothing new in our local space here in Trinidad and Tobago. And has there ever been any implementation of any part of a constitutional reform that has been presented to any government in Trinidad and Tobago?
Matter of fact, you see the executive power one man have, which is the prime minister. Okay, then for instance, the current prime minister said he would only serve 2 terms, right? Now, the report which was handed in, it talk about 2 terms limit for the prime minister. It talk about fixed date for election. It talk about the right to recall. It talk about proportional representation. It talk about full-time MPs. And when you look and seeing today MPs being ministers and being member of parliament and don't have time for the constituency, tell you, when you go to see an MP, you have to get an appointment. Before the election, you don't want no appointment because they're coming to meet you. They will call you all over the night. After the election, they screen their calls. You can't get them when you call them. And when you go to their office, you meet their staff and the staff asking you what it is you want. The staff start to question you. But when they was offering themselves up for election, they wasn't questioning the constituents. And I think it's time we, the people, should say we want constitutional reform. No party should tell us that they're giving us constitutional reform, because you can't put a committee in place to go length and breadth throughout the country to gather information, and for that committee now to make recommendation. And when the recommendations is make, you're rejecting X, you're rejecting Y, you're rejecting Z. Yes, I cannot stop you from rejecting if your party don't want it, if this party don't want it. But what about the people? So the constitution reform today we are seeing is not really about the people. It is now we seeing paying committees to go length and breadth. We see it in the under the partnership. We had a constitutional reform committee went length and breadth, even whole sittings in Tobago. And when the time for the report to be presented to the government under Kamla Pusa, they went to bring a runoff bill. And the runoff bill was to kill third parties. And that was not in the report, because Justice Venter, who was the chairman, and Mulhotch tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago that runoff bill was never in the report. Same thing as we see today with the coat of arms. They said that that was never mentioned or they never recommend that. But nevertheless, we must clamor for meaningful constitutional reform. And if we don't do that, we will always be in this situation
Mr. Eversley,
where we will have one man selecting the president. We can vote for a president, one man selecting the cabinet. We cannot have an input in our cabinet. Our cabinet cannot come and talk for the MPs could question the cabinet. Members of parliament toward party line rather than coming to the people and ask what the people want to do changes in laws and legislation put forth. Nobody will do that.
But Mr. Eversley,
And then,
we're talking about, of course, as we mentioned, a committee was set up. They went into different communities, gathering information and presenting it back to the government. And we're saying now that elements of the reform were rejected. What kind of action? Because if we sit year after year, I've been hearing this conversation ever since I was a little child coming up, and we're still in the position where we do not have constitutional reform implemented. What type of action, in your opinion, must be taken for the type of constitutional reform that we want to see here, the people that is of Trinidad and Tobago, we want to see in the constitution for reformation? Because we have these committees, we go in, we engage the public, we engage the people for whom the reform is supposed to, of course, impact, and we don't see the changes. What type of action do you think needs to be taken for the reform to happen?
I answer that question. I want to draw your attention to local government in Trinidad. Do you know local government councillors, right, have been treated with scant courtesy? Do you know that local government councillors, in order for them to get something done, they say they have a council, yes, but what power the council have? They still have to lobby the minister. Are we seeing local government reform? We should have local government reform. We should have TTPS reform. We should have justice, the judiciary reform. We should have the constitutional reform in the office of the Director of Public Prosecution. We should have meaningful, right, constitutional reform for Tobago. But in order for this to happen, we the people must make a stand and get those that we employ, because those people are our employees, you know. They're working for us. We are their employer. We are the employer. And if we want to get meaningful constitutional reform, are we going to stand up as a people and say, this is what we want? Because we cannot spend thousands of dollars hiring people to go length and breadth throughout the country to talk about constitutional reform, to say this is what the people want. And then when they bring it, somebody say, we're not going with this, we're not going with that, we're not going. If you don't like it, listen to what the other people say and let the majority decide. Why we can't have referendum to the right to recall a member of parliament? If a member of parliament is working for you, why you don't have a right to recall that member of parliament, a right to recall a councillor? That's why you see today in Trinidad, we don't get qualified people as councillors. Because when you look and you see people today as councillors in our country called Trinidad, I don't know how Tobago operate because you all have assemblymen. But some of the councillors here, they don't even understand their job. Them feel their job is just going there and going to the council and say, this drain dirty, that drain a rat, that drain a cockroach. And it's more than that. It's more than that, because that's why we see councillors today, representatives today for local government, is more of a partisan affairs and not really representative for country. It's time we get representative who will see Trinidad and Tobago first. Don't matter you represent a party, but when you get elected, you're for all the people. And is that what we're lacking in this country? We have too much partisan and too much culture in your party rather than your country. And I saying it, we the people, it's time for we to stand up. It's time for we to let them know this is what we want. You can't tell us what we want for constitutional reform, because it have people who don't support PNM, don't support UNC. And so who representing them? Who represented them? Nobody representing them. So while you're having constitutional reform and you want to have proportional representation. So if you don't vote PNM, you don't vote PNM, UNC, then where you stand? Where you stand? It's so clearly there's something definitely wrong with the way how we do governance in this country called Trinidad and Tobago.
Absolutely. Hoping that the conversation continues and that the measures are put in place as per the request of the people of Trinidad and Tobago in the best possible way for all of us to benefit from the reform of the Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Eversley, for joining us this morning and for bringing your opinions on those two very important topics. Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we have to end the morning show on Tobago Updates Television, and we're so happy that you stayed with us even until the very end. But I tell you, this is not where we end our programming. in, we head on over to GMT. And as we head on over, we invite you to stay with us. And as you stay with us, we encourage you to help us share the live, share the live, share the live.